When my daughter-in-law told me to leave, I smiled instead of crying. I remember that morning so clearly. The sunlight was coming through the kitchen windows, making little patterns on the floor. I had just finished making breakfast for everyone. The eggs were scrambled just the way my grandson likes them. The toast was golden brown. The coffee was fresh. And then she walked in. She didn't look at me the way she used to. Her eyes were cold. Her voice was flat. She said, "Mother, we need to talk." I knew what was coming. A mother always knows. She told me that my son and her had decided it was time for me to find somewhere else to live. She said they needed space. They needed privacy. They needed to live their own lives. She said it so calmly, like she was reading a grocery list. And I smiled. I smiled because I didn't want her to see the tears that were building behind my eyes. I smiled because I had been expecting this for months. I smiled because smiling was easier than screaming. When my son came home that evening, he wouldn't look at me. He just stood in the doorway with his hands in his pockets, staring at the floor. He mumbled something about how they thought it would be better for everyone. How they wanted me to be happy. How they would help me find a nice place. I nodded. I told him I understood. But inside, something was breaking. I had raised that boy. I had held him when he was sick. I had stayed up countless nights worrying about him. I had given up so much for him. And now he was asking me to leave. I packed my things that night. I didn't have much. Just some clothes. A few photographs. A small wooden box that had belonged to my mother. And my aunt's old journal. That journal was special to me. It was the only thing I had left of her. My aunt had been the one person in my family who truly understood me. She had passed away many years ago, but her words stayed with me. As I packed, I thought about all the things my aunt had told me when I was young. She used to say that family was complicated. She used to say that love could be painful. She used to say that sometimes we have to let go of the people we love the most. I never understood what she meant until now. The morning I left, my grandson came running to me. He was only 7 years old. He wrapped his little arms around my legs and asked why I was going. I knelt down and looked into his eyes. I told him that I was going on an adventure. I told him that I would always love him. And then I walked out the door. I didn't look back. Let me take you back to the beginning. My name is Margaret. I am 73 years old now. I was born in a small town in the countryside, where everyone knew everyone and life moved at a slower pace. I grew up in a big family. I had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. My parents were hard-working people. My father worked at the factory, and my mother stayed home to take care of us. Money was tight, but there was always enough food on the table and love in our home. My Aunt Evelyn was my mother's younger sister. She never married. She never had children. She lived alone in a small house at the edge of town. And she was the most fascinating person I had ever met. Aunt Evelyn was different from everyone else in our family. She was quiet and thoughtful. She spent hours reading books and writing in her journal. She would sit in her garden for hours, just watching the flowers grow and listening to the birds sing. When I was young, I didn't understand her. I thought she was strange. I thought she was lonely. But as I grew older, I realized that my aunt was not lonely at all. She was content. She had found a peace that most people spend their whole lives searching for. I used to visit her every Sunday afternoon. I would walk to her house through the fields, carrying a basket of vegetables from our garden. She would make tea, and we would sit in her small kitchen and talk for hours. She told me stories about our family, stories that no one else would tell me, stories about secrets and betrayals and love and loss. She told me about my grandmother, who had fled her home during the war. She told me about my grandfather, who had built a life from nothing. She told me about the family members who had been forgotten, the ones we never spoke about. But mostly, she taught me about life. She taught me that not everything is black and white. She taught me that people are complicated. She taught me that love can hurt, but that it's still worth it. Margaret, she would say, we don't get to choose our families, but we do get to choose how we love them. I didn't understand that then. I was too young, too naive. I thought love was simple. I thought family meant always being there for each other. I didn't know that sometimes, family can break your heart. My aunt died when I was 32 years old. She passed away quietly in her sleep. I found her the next morning, lying in her bed with her journal open on her chest. Her face was peaceful. Her hands were folded. I kept her journal. I never read it, though. Not for a long time. I kept it safely in a drawer, wrapped in cloth. I think I was afraid of what I might find in there. Afraid that her words would reveal things I wasn't ready to know. And then I got married. My husband was a good man. His name was Robert. He worked hard, he provided for our family, and he loved me the best way he knew how. We had 2 children together. Our son Michael and our daughter Sarah. Life was busy. Life was full. I didn't have much time to think about the past. I was too focused on the present, on raising my children, on building a home. I put my aunt's journal away and didn't look at it again. Years passed. Robert got sick. He fought hard, but he lost the battle. I was a widow at 62. After Robert passed, I spent a lot of time alone. My daughter Sarah had moved to a different state. My son Michael lived nearby with his family. I started visiting them more often. I helped with the grandchildren. I cooked meals. I cleaned the house. I tried to be useful. And then Michael asked me to move in with them. I was hesitant at first. I didn't want to be a burden. But he insisted. He said it would be good for everyone. He said the children would love having their grandmother around. So I moved in. It was nice at first. I felt needed. I felt wanted. I helped raise my grandson, little Benjamin. I was there for his first steps, his first words, his first day of school. But slowly, things started to change. My daughter-in-law, Linda, started pulling away. She was polite but distant. She stopped including me in family conversations. She started making plans that didn't involve me. I tried not to notice. I told myself I was being too sensitive. I told myself that she was just busy, just stressed. But deep down, I knew what was happening. I was no longer welcomed. It started with small things. Little comments that seemed harmless at first. You don't have to cook tonight, Mother. We're ordering dinner. You must be tired, Mother. Why don't you rest in your room? I would smile and nod. I would go to my room and close the door. But I could hear them talking about me. Late at night, when they thought I was sleeping, I could hear the low murmur of their voices, the occasional raised tone. They were arguing about me, about what to do with me. Then came the changes. They changed the locks on the house. They said it was for safety. But they didn't give me a new key. I had to wait for them to open the door when I came back from my walks. They rearranged the furniture in the living room. They moved my favorite chair to the corner, where it was hidden away. They said it was because they were redecorating. They stopped having family dinners together. Everyone would eat at different times. I would sit alone in the dining room, eating my meal in silence. And then there was the incident with Benjamin. My grandson used to love spending time with me. We would play games together. I would read him bedtime stories. He would crawl into my bed on rainy mornings, and we would watch cartoons together. But Linda started pulling him away. She would find excuses to take him to his room. She would tell me that he needed to do homework, that he was too old for bedtime stories, that he needed to bond with his father. I understood. He was her son. She had the right to raise him however she wanted. But it hurt. One evening, I overheard Linda talking to her friend on the phone. She didn't know I was standing in the hallway. She was complaining about me. She said I was too involved. She said I was smothering. She said she couldn't breathe with me there. My heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I went to my room that night and sat on my bed for hours. I stared at the wall and tried to understand what I had done wrong. I had tried so hard to be helpful. I had tried so hard to be supportive. But somehow, I had become a burden. A problem to be solved. The next morning, I woke up early. I decided to make breakfast for everyone. I thought maybe if I showed them how much I cared, things would change. I made scrambled eggs with cheese. I made bacon. I made pancakes from scratch. I made fresh orange juice. The kitchen smelled wonderful. For a moment, everything felt normal again. Then Linda walked in. Her face changed when she saw me. She looked annoyed. "Mother," she said, her voice sharp. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," I said. "I wanted to do something nice for everyone." She sighed. "We've talked about this. We don't need you to do all this. We can take care of ourselves. That I felt my eyes sting. I just thought it would be nice. We're grown adults, she said. We don't need to be mothered. That was when I knew. I knew there was no saving this. No matter what I did, I would always be in the way. I stopped cooking after that. I stopped cleaning. I stayed in my room as much as possible. I became invisible. And then one day Linda told me she needed to talk to me. We sat down at the kitchen table. She poured herself a cup of coffee. She didn't offer me any. Mother, she said. Michael and I have been talking. We think it's time for you to find your own place. I nodded. I understand. Things are getting crowded, she continued. We need space for the children. We need room to grow as a family. We just can't have you here anymore. Of course, I said. I understand. She looked surprised by my calmness. I think she expected me to argue, to cry, to make a scene. But what was the point? Michael came home that evening and didn't say a word to me. He walked past me like I was furniture. He sat down and turned on the television. That's when I decided to leave. I packed my things that night. I kept the journal in my hands, feeling its weight. I opened the box and looked at it for the first time in years. It was a small leather book, brown with age. The pages were yellowed and fragile. My aunt's handwriting was neat and precise. I opened the first page that I started reading my aunt's journal that night. I sat on my bed, surrounded by boxes and bags, and I read page after page. My eyes were tired, but I couldn't stop. Her words pulled me in. At first, the entries were ordinary. She wrote about her daily life, her garden, her work, her quiet, solitary routine. Then something changed. I found an entry from 50 years ago. It was dated just a few months before she died. Her handwriting was different. It was shakier, like her hands were trembling when she wrote. Dear Margaret, she wrote. I know I should have told you this years ago. But I was afraid. I was always so afraid. I hope you can forgive me when you read this. I hope you can understand. My heart started racing. I read the next entry, and then the next. Each one revealed a little more of the story. A story that our family had tried so hard to bury. My aunt had a child. A daughter. I couldn't believe it. My aunt who never married. My aunt, who everyone thought was content to be alone. She had a daughter. The baby was born in 1943. My aunt was just 19 years old. Her family, my grandparents, were horrified. In those days, having a child out of wedlock was a scandal. A disgrace. They forced her to give the baby up for adoption. They told her it was the only way. They said she had to think about the family reputation. My aunt never forgave them. She wrote about the day they took her baby away. The sound of the infant crying. The way her arms felt empty. The deep, hollow ache that never went away. That I was not allowed to name her, she wrote. I was not allowed to hold her for more than a few moments. They told me it was better this way. Better for the baby. Better for everyone. But nothing felt better. No. Felt okay. My heart was ripped out of my chest, and I never got it back. I wiped tears from my eyes. I couldn't believe what I was reading. My aunt had spent her whole life alone. She had never married. She had never had more children. She was never allowed to speak of the baby. But she never stopped searching. She wrote about the adoption agency. About how she tried to find her daughter. About how the records were sealed. About how the years passed, and she started to lose hope. I think about her every single day, she wrote. I wonder what she looks like. I wonder if she has my eyes. I wonder if she's happy. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. I kept reading, my hands trembling. My aunt had finally found her. After 40 years of searching, a letter arrived at her house one cold November morning. It was from her daughter. Her name was Eleanor. She was 40 years old. She was married. She had 3 children of her own. She had a good life. But she had always wondered. She had always felt the void. She had always known she was adopted. The letter was beautiful and heartbreaking. Eleanor wrote about her childhood, about the loving adoptive parents who had raised her, about the curiosity that had always haunted her. She said she had hired a private investigator. She said she was finally ready to meet. My aunt wrote about the day they met. At a small cafe in the city. She was so nervous she could barely speak. But when Eleanor walked in, my aunt knew instantly. She had my eyes, she wrote. She had the same dimples. The same way of tilting her head when she smiled. I recognized my daughter. Not from the records or the photos. But because she was a piece of me. A piece I had lost and finally found. They spent the whole afternoon together. They talked and cried and laughed. They shared stories and photographs. They made plans to meet again. My aunt was overjoyed. For the first time in 40 years, she felt whole. But there was a problem. Eleanor didn't want the rest of the family to know about her. She was afraid. Afraid of rejection. Afraid of being seen as a shameful secret. My aunt promised to keep their relationship a secret. And she did. She wrote about their visits. Their phone calls. Their letters. She wrote about Eleanor's children, her grandchildren. The family she had always wanted, but never knew she could have. She wrote about the day she held her great-granddaughter for the first time. I held that baby, she wrote. And I thought, this is what matters. This is what life is about. Not the shame. Not the secrets. But the love. The connection. The bond. The final entry in the journal was different. It was shorter. Sadder. She stopped coming, my aunt wrote. I don't know why. I called, but no one answered. I wrote, but no one replied. Maybe I pushed too hard. Maybe I wanted too much. Maybe she just didn't want me in her life anymore. I don't know. And I think that's the hardest part. Not knowing. The journal ended there. The last few pages were blank. I closed the book and held it against my chest. I cried for a long time. For my aunt. For her lost daughter. For the love that was never given a chance. But mostly, I cried for the secret. The secret that had torn my family apart. The secret that had been hidden for so long. The secret that I had just discovered. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on my bed with my aunt's journal in my hands. The moonlight came through the window, casting shadows on the walls. I thought about everything my aunt had gone through. The shame. The pain. The loneliness. She had kept her secret for her whole life, never telling anyone. Never letting anyone see her grief, and now, I understood why she was the way she was. She wasn't strange. She wasn't lonely. She was just broken, carrying a burden that no one should have to carry alone. I decided I needed to find Eleanor. I needed to know what happened to her. I needed to understand why she disappeared from my aunt's life. I needed to know if she was still alive. I started searching that very night. The next morning, I went to the library. I spent hours going through old records. I searched online databases. I called adoption agencies. I was determined to find her. And finally, I did. Eleanor was 75 years old now. She was living in a small town 3 states away. She was widowed. She had 3 children. She had grandchildren. I found her phone number. I stared at the number for a long time. My hand was trembling. I didn't know if I should call. I didn't know what to say. But then I thought about my aunt. About how she had waited 40 years for that phone call. About how she had never given up hope. And I dialed. The phone rang once. Twice. 3 times. Then a voice answered. Hello. I froze. My mouth went dry. I didn't know what to say. Hello, the voice said again. Who is this? Eleanor. I managed to whisper. Yes. My name is Margaret, I said. I'm your mother's niece. There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing. Margaret, she said finally. Oh my God. The next few minutes were a blur. I told her everything. About the journal. About my aunt. About the years of searching. She was crying. I could hear it in her voice. I thought about her every single day, she said. I wanted to call her. I wanted to see her again. But I was so scared. I was so confused. Eleanor, what happened? I asked. Why did you stop contacting her? She took a deep breath. It was my husband, she said. He didn't understand. He thought it would bring too much shame to our family. He made me choose between my mother and my marriage. Oh, Eleanor, I said. It was the hardest decision of my life, she said. But I chose my children. I chose my marriage. I thought that was the right thing to do. But it broke her, I said. It broke her heart. I know, she said. I know. And I've regretted it every single day since that we talked for hours. She told me about her life, about her children, about her grandchildren, about the guilt that had weighed on her for decades. She told me she had tried to find my aunt. After her husband passed away, she had started searching, but she couldn't find her. She thought my aunt had died without knowing the truth. She died thinking you didn't love her, I said. She died thinking she had pushed you away. Eleanor sobbed. I loved her so much, she said. I loved her more than anything. I just didn't know how to show it. I was silent for a moment. She left you something, I finally said. Something I think you should have. What is it? She asked. Her journal, I said. She wrote about you every single day. She never stopped loving you. There was a long silence. I want to meet you, Eleanor said. I want to see you. I want to know more about her. I want to know everything. Of course, I said. I'll come to you. Just tell me where. We agreed on a date. I packed a small bag, and I started the drive. It was a long journey. I had plenty of time to think, to reflect, to wonder if I was doing the right thing. But I knew I was. When I finally arrived, Eleanor was waiting for me. She was standing on her porch, looking just like I had pictured her. She had my aunt's eyes. I walked up the driveway, and we stood there for a moment, just looking at each other. And then we embraced. It felt like coming home, like finding something I didn't know I had lost, like connecting with a part of myself I hadn't known was missing. That day, Eleanor and I talked for hours. She showed me photographs of her family, her children, her grandchildren. She told me stories about her life, and I told her stories about my aunt. About the woman who had been so quiet, so unassuming, yet had carried a heart so full of love. She was the most amazing person I ever knew, I said. She taught me so much. She taught me about love, about sacrifice, about forgiveness. Eleanor smiled. She sounds like someone I would have loved to know. You would have, I said. She would have loved you. She never stopped loving you. We spent the whole week together. Eleanor introduced me to her children and grandchildren. They welcomed me like family, because we were family. Before I left, I gave Eleanor the journal. Here, I said. This belongs to you. She took it with trembling hands. She opened the first page and started reading. I watched her face change. Her eyes filled with tears. Her lips curved into a smile. She never forgot me, Eleanor whispered. All those years. She never forgot me. Never, I said. She loved you until the very end. Eleanor held the journal against her chest, just like I had. And we cried together. Two women connected by grief, by love, by a family secret that had finally been revealed. When I got back home, something had changed. I wasn't the same woman who had left. I had found something. Something I had been missing for a long time. I had found my family. I called my son Michael that evening. He sounded surprised to hear from me. Mother, he said. Where have you been? We were worried. I went on a journey, I said. I needed to find something. Find what? He asked. I told him about my aunt. About Eleanor. About the secret that had been hidden for so long. He was quiet when I finished. Mother, he said. I'm so sorry. For what? I asked. For everything, he said. For how we treated you. For asking you to leave. We were wrong. I was wrong. I took a deep breath. I'm not angry, Michael. I was hurt. But I understand. We were all trying our best. But I should have stood up for you, he said. I should have protected you. That was my job. You can't protect everyone, I said. Not even people you love the most. That's something I learned from my aunt. Can we try again? He asked. Can you come back home? I smiled. I already have a home, I said. I have a family. I have people who love me. I love you, Mother, he said. I've always loved you. I just forgot to show it. I love you too, Michael, I said. And I forgive you. That was 2 years ago. Today I'm sitting in my aunt's old house. Eleanor and I bought it together. We fixed it up. We made it a home. It's not a grand house. It's a simple little cottage at the edge of town. The same cottage where my aunt used to live. The same kitchen where we used to drink tea and talk about life. But now it's filled with laughter. With family. Eleanor and her children visit often. Michael and Linda have come too. They've apologized. They've tried to make amends. Benjamin, my grandson, stayed here for the entire summer. He helped me in the garden. He planted flowers just like my aunt used to. He asked me once, "Grandma, why did you leave? Why didn't you stay with us?" I thought about it for a long moment. I wanted to tell him the truth. I wanted to protect him from the pain. But then I remembered my aunt's words. "Sometimes, sweetheart," I said, "we have to leave so we can find our way back." He didn't fully understand. But that's okay. He will one day. I often think about my Aunt Evelyn. About her quiet strength. About her enduring love. She taught me so much. She taught me that forgiveness is not weakness. That love is not a burden. That family is not about blood, but about connection. I kept her journal in a place of honor on my shelf. Eleanor and I sometimes read it together. We laugh. We cry. We remember. We share the secret that our family tried so hard to hide. But it's not a secret anymore. It's a story. A story about love. About loss. About the choices we make. And about how, no matter how far we stray, we can always find our way home. My aunt used to say, "The things we don't say can break us, but the things we do say can heal us." I didn't understand that then. But I do now. I'm 73 years old. I've seen a lot of life. I've made a lot of mistakes. But I've also learned a lot. I've learned that it's never too late to forgive. It's never too late to love. It's never too late to come home. Because home isn't a place. It's the people we love. And it's the love we choose to give. Tonight, I'm sitting on the porch watching the sunset. The sky is painted in oranges and pinks, just like the sunsets my aunt used to love. Eleanor is inside making tea. Her grandchildren are playing in the garden. Their laughter fills the air. I'm holding my aunt's journal in my hands. It's worn and tattered, but it's still the most precious thing I own. I open it to the last page. My aunt had written one final message. I think she knew someone would find it someday. "Dear family," she wrote. "I hope you find this one day. I hope you understand. I loved you all. Every single one of you. I hope you forgive me for my silence. I hope you forgive me for my secrets. And most of all, I hope you learn to love each other. Not perfectly. Not without flaws. But truly. Deeply. Completely. That is all I ever wanted. That is all I ever hoped for." I close my eyes. I let the tears fall. "I forgive you, Auntie," I whisper. "And I love you. Always." The sun dips below the horizon, and the stars come out. And I know wherever she is, my aunt is smiling.